Moses here from MGTOW Mafia. It's great to be back, and today we are going to be talking about the evil nature of females, especially regarding the Bible.
Praise the Lord.
But before we give this great Bible lecture, I'm going to begin with a little lighthearted humor.
Praise the Lord.
Feel free to share this with your friends. You know, inside every female, you can find a male. Yeah, you can. Take, for example, the word madam. You can find Adam. In the word woman, you can find a man. In the word she, you can find a he. In the word female, there is a male. When you say a man, there are men. When you're talking about a human, there is a man. When you talk about a regimen, there are men. When you talk about an omen, there are men. And last but not least, when you say the word examine, there are men involved. Ha ha ha. Very funny. Okay, it was cute. Now it's time to get biblical. We're going to discuss the evil females from the Bible. Some of you may be asking yourselves, why aren't I discussing the evil men from the Bible? And that's because the majority of those men got taken out, removed, hurt, or destroyed by other good men. It's so funny, I can't even find one evil woman who was killed because of her vicious, petulant behavior. Some of you may know the biblical Sanhedrin court killed those who committed sins punishable by death. However, the court put a person to death regardless of gender more than once every 7 years. If they even did that, the court itself would have been considered a failure and corrupt. So now that would be a rarity. I found only one woman who was put to death by God himself, and I'm going to share that with you later in my story. On the very first day of creation, God created the heavens and the earth. And on the second day of creation, God created the sky. The third day, God created dry land. On the fourth day, God created all the stars and the heavenly bodies. And on the fifth day, God created all life that lives in water, and not only the water, but the birds in the sky. On the sixth day, God created the creatures that live on dry land. And on the seventh day, he rested. After he completed this beautiful, magnificent world, he decided to create man. And the very first man's name was Adam. But Adam became very lonely. So God wanted to give Adam a companion. God therefore took a rib from Adam and created Eve. God told Adam that he was free to till the ground and they can both eat freely from any tree in the garden they choose, except for one tree, the forbidden fruit. So what happened was a serpent deceived Eve into eating the forbidden fruit. She easily ate the fruit, and she committed the first sin, and then passed that sin right on to Adam and deceived Adam to do the same. Much like today, the first original sin was committed by a woman herself. Now you guys heard of Abraham, right? He was the first monotheistic biblical figure. He had a nephew by the name of Lot. Abraham's nephew, Lot, made a mistake by settling in Sodom, one of the world's most wickedest cities ever. God sent an angel to visit and deliver a message to Lot and his wife. That message was pretty simple: to flee the city of Sodom and do not look at it and turn your back towards it. So what does the woman do? She disobeys God, and God turns her into a pillar of stone. This is the first biblical account of a woman being put to death by God himself. Now Lot's journey continues, but the story gets worse than any porno movie can offer. Lot and his two daughters made their home in a cave nestled in the mountains. But because the whole city was destroyed, including Lot's two sons-in-law, there were no men for his daughters to marry. Desperate to bear children and carry on the family line, Lot's older daughter conspired with her younger sister to ply their father with wine on 2 successive nights, and then sleep with him. When Lot's daughters had their sexual romps with their father, the father, Lot, was so drunk he didn't remember a thing. Each of the daughters gave birth to sons, of whom was the progenitor of the Moabites and the other the Ammonites, both wicked enemies of Israel. The sins begin to get worse. Let's talk about Jacob's son, Joseph. Joseph was thrown into a pit by his brothers and sold to the Egyptians as a slave. Joseph got sold to the king's right-hand man by the name of Potiphar. He had a wife named Zuleika. This evil woman had a history of seducing slaves in the past and imprisoning them falsely based on false erroneous testimony. So one day she tried to seduce Joseph but Joseph refused. And when he refused, she got angry. And because of her high status, even though her husband didn't believe her, he threw Joseph in the prison. The commentaries say that Potiphar did not want to embarrass his wife. His wife was of a high social status. So what he did, he chose not to put Joseph to death. He knew that he was innocent. So instead, he put him in the prison and he suffered there. As you can see, false rape culture and accusations have been around for thousands of years. The men suffer still today as a result. The feminists pour gasoline on sparks, which engulf destructive huge flames on our society today. Have any of you out there ever been in love with a girl but never felt the love being returned to you? Well, this next biblical story, lessons from the story of Samson and Delilah, teach us about this. Samson was a miracle child born to a woman who had previously been barren. His parents were told by an angel that Samson was to be a Nazirite all of his life. Nazirites took a vow of holiness to abstain from wine and grapes, to not cut their hair or beard, and to avoid contact with dead bodies. As he grew up, the Bible says the Lord blessed Samson, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir in him. Judges 13:25. However, as he grew into manhood, Samson's lusts overpowered him. After a series of foolish mistakes and bad decisions, he fell in love with a woman named Delilah. His affair with this woman from the valley of the Sorek marked the beginning of his downfall and eventual demise. Samson married a Philistine woman called Delilah after she converted to the Jewish religion. The Philistine lords came to Delilah one day and said to her, "Delilah, you must find out what the secret of your husband's great strength is. If you will obtain the secret of his strength from him, we will reward you well. You will be rich. You will have everything your heart desires." Delilah could not resist this offer of wealth, and so this heartless creature agreed to sell her husband's life for some silver pieces. But now the question remained, how to wheedle the truth out of Samson. Delilah was an artful creature. She would find a way. With the wills and the gills she possessed, she cruelly and tenaciously tormented him with the question, "What is the secret of your power?" until he could stand it no longer. "If you bind me with 7 new ropes that were never used, then I am no stronger than the ordinary man," Samson told her. Delilah told the secret to the Philistine lords, and they brought her 7 fresh cords that hadn't been used, saying she wished to see if he told her the truth. Delilah persuaded Samson to let himself be bound, being unaware that the Philistine lords lay waiting to pounce upon him in Delilah's chamber. Then she cried to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." At these words, Samson broke the ropes with no trouble at all, as though they were mere cobwebs. Delilah was not discouraged. "O Samson," she cried tearfully, "you have deceived me. All your vows of affection were but a mockery and untruth. Come, tell me wherein really lies the secret of your strength." Again and again, Samson deceived her with false clues about the mystery of his strength. However, Delilah did not relent her efforts to entice him. Finally, Samson could no longer bear the constant prying and told her the secret of his strength. "Since my birth, I have never cut my hair, for I am a Nazirite. If my hair is cut, I lose my strength, for God will not be with me any longer." The treacherous Delilah knew that Samson was telling her the truth this time. She hastened to summon the Philistine lords to her house. When Samson was asleep, one of the men cut his locks away, and then Delilah cried, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." Samson jumped up. He prepared to defend himself, but the divine protection that had endowed him with such extraordinary strength before had departed from him, and the men who lay in wait for Samson easily overcame him. These heartless Philistines put out both of his eyes and led him to Gaza in the iron chains. The Philistines made a great feast to celebrate their victory over Samson. They gathered in the great hall in Gaza. They sang, they danced, and gave thanks to their God by the name of Dagon for delivering Samson into their hands. And then they sent for the poor blind Samson, who had his eyes gouged out, so that he might amuse them. Tormented and cruelly humiliated, he could not bear the rude jests and their idol worship. Turning to his guide, he said, "Lead me to the pillars, so that I may lean upon them and rest for a minute." The boy obeyed. Samson, afire with anger and pain, Invoke the Lord, O God. Give me strength this once. Let me avenge myself on these cruel Philistines, and that they may know that you are the only God. It matters not if I die with them. Once again he felt the Spirit of God in him. With one mighty heave, Samson tore the pillars down, and the next instant the walls and the roof came crashing down. Not a single Philistine present survived. Samson, too, was killed in this great crash. Later, his remains were brought to his native land that he fought so violently to defend. So you guys out there that are married, it's not beyond reason that your wife wouldn't kill you to get some money. It's happened before. Be careful. One last biblical story for you. This is a story about how a woman can turn a righteous man into a very unholy man. This story is about the great King Solomon. He married about 1,000 wives. Many of his wives, after his first 18 wives, worshipped idols and other false gods. His heart was twisted, and he became untrue to God thanks to his wives. Now, the moral of all these biblical stories are not to be so naive when it comes to females. Don't think that females have the right answers. Don't rely on females. Don't depend on females. And don't listen to females. Listen to God and listen to yourself. Be righteous. Thanks for listening to my stories. And this is Moses from MGTOW Mafia. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button and click subscribe. Thank you.